So we all see reality in a particular way. Dreher goes on to say this: if we don't understand ourselves as part of a greater story, we'll have no idea what we're supposed to do with our lives. And in our modern world, we have lost the story that for centuries gave people in our culture a way to make sense of their lives. The biblical story. In other words, most of the world, for the better part of the last 1,500 years or so, has seen reality through the same set of glasses. They've understood reality through a particular set of lenses. Again, they may have been conscious of that, they may not have been, but it shaped so much. It shaped education, it shaped entertainment, it shaped architecture, it shaped music, it shaped painting, it shaped government, it shaped so much. But right now we're in a time and in a place where either the glasses have been broken, or our prescriptions changed, or we've just gotten amnesia. In our secular age, we no longer believe we're part of any universal story. We're free to choose our own narratives, which means we can follow our own hearts. If it feels good, do it. If it feels right, believe it. That might strike you as the only sensible guide to conduct. It's how many people think today. It's how I thought for a long time in my life, from roughly those choice years, right? From like 15 to 25. That's how I lived. If it feels good, do it. If you believe it's right, believe it. Despite a whole set of things, despite the glasses that my parents had given me, actually. I think I very consciously took them off and said, I don't want to see that way anymore. I want to see a different way. Maybe you did too. See if what he goes on to say happened to you, because this was my experience. He says, when you're captain of your own soul, though, and have cast aside all the maritime charts, showing you the safe route through dark waters, navigating only by your own stars, it's easy to make a shipwreck of your life. You wake up one day and you wonder, where am I? How did I get here? And how do I get home? Those could have been my words. Maybe they could be your words too. Maybe you had some experience in your life where you just woke up feeling lost. I remember David Duval, who's the world's #1 golfer before Tiger Woods. And he wins the British Open, and he comes home, and everybody says, are you finally fulfilled? And he actually tailspinned into depression shortly thereafter. Because his whole life had been geared towards finding that accomplishment. And that accomplishment, great as it was, he was so shocked to discover didn't fulfill him. It didn't satisfy him. He wanted more. He came to find out the more in his life was love. Oftentimes, the trouble happens in our lives not when we don't get answers to our prayers. It happens when we actually get the answers to our prayers. We pray for X to happen. X happens, and suddenly we realize, well, why am I still restless? Why am I still hungry? I got what I thought I wanted, but that's not really what I wanted. It was good. It is good. It's just not enough. That person, whether disaster happened or blessing happened, it was a shipwreck. Why is this so important right now, in this time in which you and I are living? Well, I believe it's really important because this is the story, this story of having cast aside all the maritime charts, living on our own, believing what we want to believe, thinking what we want to think. It's leading a lot of people to shipwreck. I know this as a priest. I know this as a counselor. I know this as a pastor. I know it in talking to people all around the country, whether priests or faithful churchgoers or people who've never gone to church or haven't been in church in years. This is what's happening in our country. Old, young, it cuts across every socioeconomic stratus, race, gender, doesn't matter. And for me, it was embodied in a particular way in a column that was written by Mitch Albom in the Detroit Free Press a couple of years ago now. It was right before Easter 2019. An album's title was this: Why is Living Shorter and Dying Sooner a New Trend? And in this article, he unpacks what was being revealed by a number of social scientists around the country who had rather shockingly come to the realization that in 2018, it was the first time in 100 years that the life expectancy in the United States of America had declined for a third consecutive year. This is before COVID. So just think about that for a second. Our country, with everything that we have, all the wealth, all the technology, all the medical care, even if it's unequally or unjustly distributed, we have access to so much. And yet, in our country, life expectancy was declining 3 years in a row. Last time that happened was 1918. What was happening in 1918? Two things, most especially, right? The end of World War I, which was just horrific. I don't know how familiar you are with World War I. World War II was the war that always occupied my mind and imagination. My father fought in World War II. Two uncles fought in World War II. It's the one that they make all the movies about. There are very few movies about World War I. World War I was just horrific, right? It's the first time that people are actually killing each other from far away on a massive scale. And it led to so much disaster, not just in Europe, but in our country too. It just led to a rampant sense of despair and hopelessness as literally families are fighting against each other because everybody was related. All the rulers of the nations in different ways. So that's one of the things that's happening in 1918. Of course, the other thing that's happening in 1918 is the Spanish flu, which suddenly we all know everything about. And the Spanish flu killed 50 million people. Those are the two factors that are most significant for this rapidly or increasingly or consecutively declining life expectancy. How about now? Why are we dying now? Well, sociologists say we're dying right now for three things, and they call them deaths of despair. This isn't happening from an invasion from a foreign army. This isn't happening from a meteor hitting the earth. We're doing this to ourselves, actually. And the first death of despair is suicide. There are more than a few of us in here who have been traumatically impacted by suicide. I know that. I'm one of them. My mom's brother took his life. My sister's husband took his life. I've buried, I don't know how many people who've taken their lives. More than I can count in 25 years. It's devastating. And I pray if you're one of those people who has been impacted deeply by this trauma, that God in his kindness will reach into your heart, which is still hurting, and apply the salve that only he can, most especially when we come to talk about what it is that Jesus has done to the power of death. But this is happening right now. It's increased 13 consecutive years in our country. It's up 30% since 1999. It's up 40% in rural America. And the one that just pierces me interiorly is the fact that amongst children ages 10 to 14, suicide is the second leading cause of death. Just linger with that a moment. Not amongst poor children. In fact, it's not uncommon, and if you've gone to Africa or you've gone down to Latin America, it's amazing how many people go to other parts of the world with just riddled with poverty, and they come back and their immediate impression is they're just so happy. And people say, well, that's because they don't know what they don't have. I don't think so. They're just happy. They have family, they have friends, they have food, they have a tin hut. Suicide isn't a rampant disease in Africa. It is here, in our country. with all the toys that we have. Like, when I was a kid, I grew up in an incredibly prosperous family. I was probably the most bored kid in my school. I had everything. It was always puzzling to me. Like, how is it that I have all this stuff and I'm bored? But I kind of learned from a young age, okay, stuff's fine, but there must be more because I got either that or I got a massive appetite and nothing can fill it. The suicide rate in this age group, those 10 to 14-year-olds, it's tripled over the last 14, 15 years. That's the first death of despair. The second one is cirrhosis of the liver. Most especially in those like prime years between 25 and 34. The number of people between the ages of 25 and 34 who die annually from alcohol-related liver disease has nearly tripled over the last 20 years, with an annual average increase of about 10%. This has gone up like crazy since COVID. The increase, especially amongst women, of drinking over the last year and a half or so just keeps going like this. When we unpack the mental health crisis of the last 2 years, and we're still not out of it, it's going to be beyond anything we can comprehend right now. And the last death of despair is the opioid addiction. We're 5% of the world's population. We consume 80% of the world's opioids. Why is this the case? Why is this happening? I'm going to make a claim at the beginning. We'll see if it's true or not. I don't worry about trying to convince you. I would argue it's happening because we've pushed God more and more and more and more off the stage. And when God gets pushed off the stage, the creature that's made in his image and likeness loses any sense of meaning. It's like Dreyer says in his book, where am I? How did I get here? And how do I get home? About a year ago, the CDC did a study. 25% of those they had studied between the ages of 18 and 24 had seriously considered taking their own lives in the previous month because of the COVID crisis. They did another study, another report, survey. 40% of those who they surveyed had experienced adverse mental or behavioral health conditions because of COVID, and amongst kids the ages of 18 to 24, it was 75%. Again, we're just, the mental health crisis that's in our country is vast. I'm one of those people who struggles with depression. It's rampant. And when you have no sense of why am I here and where am I going and how do I get there and am I on my own or is there a plan for my life? Is there any meaning to any of this? That anxiety, that depression, the fear that so many of us can get overwhelmed with, it just becomes just that, overwhelming. But what if there's another story?